happy Victober to you. I hope that your Victober is going so well and that you are finding some new favorite Victorian novels, and to me it is just the most wonderful time of the year. And today I wanted to do a video on George Eliot. Through the years, it has taken me a while, slowly but steadily, to fall in love with the writing of George Eliot. I think that it is very understated, a lot more understated than other Victorian novels. Definitely, she really restrains herself a lot more. But I do feel that you get enough up close and personal with the characters. She isn't quite as restrained as Jane Austen, who sometimes feels a little bit too distant from the characters to me. So I find that her books are really a challenge to read, but they're kind of a labor of love. There's not this instant gratification like I have with Jane Eyre, or what do I want to say? What's another one that I was just instantly gripped by? Lady Audley's Secret. You know, she's definitely not a sensation novelist. She is not. So I think that she can kind of take people aback by how her books are very meaty. You really have to digest them. They are not easy come, easy go. So the easy come part, is what kind of, I think, can draw people into books, but then they're easy go. So these are books that they are some of the most challenging for me to read, but I find the way that they stay with me, they're like old friends, and I can think about them and reminisce really vividly, and a lot more vividly than some other Victorian novels that I've read. Like, I love The Heir of Redcliffe, and I want to reread it, but something about the staying power of George Eliot's books. I can picture Adam Bede, Daniel Deronda, Middlemarch, Romola so much more vividly, and there's just something about her writing. So I am definitely over halfway with reading through her novels, and I am sad about that, but honestly, I'm mostly happy because her books, to me, are so meaty and have so much staying power to them that I just can't wait to reread them and think about all of the things. I can't believe I didn't catch that the first time I read it, or so many beautiful passages that I have to stop and read it again to take it in. I love her writing for that, and I love how it asks me to slow down. She asks a lot of you as a reader, but the reward that she's willing to give to you makes it so worth it. So I am, filming this video in August. I am right on the cusp of a reread of Daniel Deronda. I'm calling it a Victober warm-up that I'm doing with Kate from the novel Nomad and Adam from Memento Mori, and I am so thrilled that these friends have agreed to read George Eliot with me. Daniel Deronda, out of her books, was an easier one. It came more easily to me, but I do want to backtrack to kind of talk about the timeline of my reading George Eliot. And the first book that I read by her, and I sound like a broken record, but I'll say it again, don't start George Eliot with Middlemarch. It will put you off her writing because it is a very challenging read, and I thought it was so boring, and it did not feel worth all of the work that I had put into it. And I thought, what gives? Why is this, some people call this the greatest novel in the English language. I don't get it at all. Now, there are some parts I would stand by, like they aren't going to be my favorite sections ever. The more political parts, just me as a reader, I don't gravitate towards them as much. But I read Middlemarch, and I think I took about 6 months to read it. So it's not like I rushed it. I took 6 months to read the book. And when I finished, I thought, I'm done. Great. And even to congratulate myself, and I'm surprised in retrospect that I did this since I was so relieved to be done with it, I picked up a beautiful edition that's in boxes now, but I'll put a picture up there, from like a Penguin Deluxe edition, that's what it's called, with deckled edges. And I know deckled edges are a very divisive issue, but I picked up a beautiful edition with deckled edges, and one thing I loved about it is that the cover was not a generic woman a painting, a generic painting of a woman, which so many classic book covers are, it really spoke to a lot of what this book, kind of the atmosphere and the vibe of the book, which is this town of Middlemarch. And you're getting a picture of all sorts of residents, upper class to really dirt poor. You're seeing these different residents and their lives. And I loved hearing Rebecca Mead, who wrote the book My Life in Middlemarch, which I definitely need to read. I struggle with books about books. That's the only thing. But I did watch a talk that she did, kind of summarizing it. And she said that in the different stages of her life, Middlemarch has spoken to her through different characters. And I love the idea of that. A classic book can have new things to say to you with each reading. And it has very human themes to it, disappointment with kind of how things have turned out for your life and being really unsure if you want to continue on with your goals, and just, feeling really kind of worn out by life, I think is a very relatable thing. So like I said, it was mostly just with relief that I finished it. And then the second book, so that would have been, beginning of 2016, right? No, beginning of 2015. And then the end of 2015 comes the first Victober. And people suggested as like a group buddy read. This is before we did group reads for Victober. So the hosts, we said, let's read the Mill on the Floss. And I thought, you know what? I didn't love Middlemarch, but I will give George Eliot another try. And unfortunately, did not enjoy the Mill on the Floss that much. I think that there were parts that I enjoyed about it, but there were also a fair number of parts that I was just not that interested in. It was another one that I kind of thought with relief, phew, I'm done with that. Great. I can say I'm done. And I kind of thought, you know what? Maybe George Eliot is just not the author for me. So then comes spring of 2016, and I found a beautiful used copy of Daniel Deronda. And I had seen Emma from Bookish Princess talk about reading Daniel Deronda, and I thought, you know what? I've seen the miniseries. I find the story fascinating. Maybe I'll try that George Eliot. And I kind of instantly fell in love with that book. That book, to me, the reading came much more easily. It's much more approachable, I think, for a first-time reader to read Daniel Deronda. The story, I feel like more plotty than Middlemarch. And I think if you are all interested in kind of the experience of being a Jewish person, a Jewish member of society in the Victorian era in Victorian England, it's really fascinating. There's also some themes of Zionism that come into that. And so I know at the Ruth Perlman Institute, I think it is, there is a professor there. It's a Jewish institute, and she teaches an entire class on Daniel Deronda and Zionism. And I would love to be a fly on the wall for that class. I would just love to audit it. And it feels a bit more kind of sensational, I'd say, with the things that happen in it. Some of them feel a bit more larger than life than Middlemarch. Middlemarch, I'd say, is more of a quiet, slow and steady kind of a novel. And I really love Daniel Deronda. I came out saying that is my favorite George Eliot, and I love it. So maybe actually I do like George Eliot a bit more than I thought. Then kind of a couple of years went by, and I was thinking, I was like kind of happy to have read Daniel Deronda and kind of left it at that. But then 2018 rolled around, and I thought, you know what? People keep talking about Middlemarch. I would like to give it another try. And I did. And it was the best decision I could have made for my reading life. I was so enraptured with this book. And I remember I did a buddy read of it with Stephanie from That's What She Read. And she actually, it was her first time reading it, and she really enjoyed it the first time around. So I was happy for her that she didn't have to read through it 2 times like I did to come to love it and to appreciate it. But just with how understated of a book it is, I watched the miniseries, in 2014. And I had no idea that a certain character was in love with another character until the very end. And then you go and you read the book and you're hearing all the inner dialogue, and it's fascinating. And so I became extraordinarily invested. And I think, are a lot of characters to love. Dorothea can be really frustrating, and I think she's incredibly immature, and I think it really is off-putting to some people at first. But I really enjoy a book where a character has a really interesting arc, and I think Dorothea has a great character arc. I think Fred Vincy is a great character. I think Mary Garth is a great character. Rosamund Vincy, I think, is a really fascinating character. Dr. Lydgate, Will Ladislaw, I think there are really a lot of interesting characters in there. And so something about it, that second time, it was just like magic. And I thought, okay, I get it. I get why Middlemarch is so famous. So I hate being like one of those people, when you say you didn't like a certain book and they're like, oh, well, no, you just didn't read it right. I don't want to be like that. But if you are feeling kind of on the fence about whether you're not sure if you like George Eliot or not, maybe try it a second time. Maybe try it in audiobook format. I read it the second time as an audiobook, and it suited me very well. Suited me very well. So enjoyed that so much in 2018. And then in 2019, when I hosted Knit and Listen with Mel from Belle's Bookland Adventures and Christy from the Tiny Chronicles and Natalie from Curious Reader, we kind of were tossing back and forth audiobook ideas. And I don't know what made me do it, but I just thought, what about Adam Bede? What do you think about reading that? And the ladies liked that idea, and we ended up picking Adam Bede. And that, to me, that is the gateway George Eliot novel. Not Silas Marner, actually. I'll get to Silas Marner in a moment. That, to me, is the George Eliot novel to start with. I can't recommend it enough. And I think it would be fascinating to read it back to back with The Scarlet Letter, because it is George Eliot's retelling of The Scarlet Letter. And it's really fascinating to see kind of the things that she tweaks and she changes. But then again, it's also been around 10 years since I had read The Scarlet Letter. So I would love to, some year, reread both of them, read a nonfiction with something, relevant to do with that, and then do a whole whopping video on those three. That would be kind of a dream video for me. But yes, the characters in Adam Bede, I felt really invested in, and something about George Eliot's writing style. Like, I kind of want to cry just thinking about some of the passages in it. And I did include, I think, at least one passage in my Victober reading vlog, which I could have included like 50 more. So I'm going to try to make a concerted effort this year when I vlog for Victober to read more beautiful passages. And yeah, I can't get over how much I enjoyed it. So that kind of sealed the deal, where I was like, okay, I actually really like George Eliot. It was this really gratifying thing, because I felt like I was sort of missing out on this club, this George Eliot fan club. Not like I knew a lot of George Eliot fans, but she's just such a part of the classic canon. She's a fascinating person to me. So then I thought, all right, it's official. I am reading all of George Eliot's books. I am doing it. So then I hosted several read-along Most Victorians in the first half of the year. And we started out January strong. I went to a used bookstore in the fall, and they had there Felix, Holt, and Romola, which were the two novels of hers that I had left to read, aside from Silas Marner. So we did Silas Marner in December, and unfortunately, Silas Marner was a bit of a disappointment, because I think I had only heard from people that really liked it. I think that's what it was. And I unfortunately did not really like it, but I think maybe I do wonder how I would feel about it if that had been my first George Eliot. It's just that there's so much to offer in Adam Bede, Daniel Deronda, and Middlemarch that it felt really so short. I think it was the brevity. I wasn't really engaged with the story until about 100 pages, and then there's only about 75 pages left after that. So it was just so brief, the time that I was invested in the story. I just didn't really get into it, unfortunately. So at some point, I will be rereading Silas Marner. That's what I'm doing with all the ones that I didn't love at first. I will be rereading Silas Marner, and at some point, I will be rereading The Mill on the Floss. Also, Elizabeth Gaskell, for the books that she was alive for that were published, loved George Eliot's writing, which is so fun to me because now I would say I'm getting ahead of myself. So then that was in December. Then in January, we read Romola. It was a labor of love to read Romola. It was definitely her most challenging book. Do not start with Romola, which Christy Lewis, bless your heart. Oh wait, you did read Silas Marner if you're watching this. So she is like such a champion with read-alongs, and she struggled through it. And my friend Claire struggled through it, but we all struggled through it together, and we all came out thinking, what did I think of that book? And then a week went by. I was supposed to film my review, and I got really intimidated. And I saw Christy's video on it, and I thought, oh, actually, I really loved that book. And then I filmed my review on it, and Christy commented, oh, your review made me realize, actually, I think I really loved that book. But it was such a challenging reading experience. It was one of those, it was not easy come, easy go. It was a labor of love. But it was one of those books that I read it, and I thought, wow, okay, I think if I read this 10 times, I would feel I really got everything. Not everything. I would feel like I'd kind of gotten a medium amount that I'm supposed to get out of this reading experience. So one thing that I love, it was the most challenging to me out of her books, and it was George Eliot's favorite of her books. But kind of after I had digested and sat on it and thought about it, I decided she's my second favorite Victorian novelist. And it was really just so gratifying. I thought I read her favorite book of hers now, and I still loved it, even though it was challenging. So I think I've kind of gotten used to her cadence, her pacing, her understated sort of writing, and I'm sold. I'm so sold. So that leaves two books. That leaves Felix Holt, the Radical, and this is one I'm maybe more intimidated by this than Romola. Romola, though, is like Florence, Italy, and the Medici. So that felt pretty intimidating as a, span in history. But Felix Holt, I think she just called like a historical fiction novel. I'm going to look up the synopsis in a second, but also then I have Scenes of Clerical Life, which were the first three things that she wrote. It was 3 novellas published separately, and now it's just put into a bundle of Scenes of Clerical Life. And they are The Sad Fortunes of the Reverend Amos Barton, Mr. Gilfil's Love Story, and Janet's Repentance. And it says they foreshadow her major work. So that's one that I definitely want to read. I might be doing an audiobook format soon. I'm not sure, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. So it says, when the young nobleman Harold Transome returns to England from the colonies with a self-made fortune, he scandalizes the town of Treby Magna with his decision to stand for Parliament as a radical. But after the idealistic Felix Holt also returns to the town, the difference between Harold's opportunistic values and Holt's profound beliefs becomes apparent. Forthright, brusque, and driven by a firm desire to educate the working class, Felix is at first viewed with suspicion by many, including the elegant but vain Esther Lyon. Wow, what a name. The daughter of the local clergyman. As she discovers, however, his blunt words conceal both passion and deep integrity. Soon the romantic and over-refined Esther finds herself overwhelmed by a heart-wrenching decision, whether to choose the wealthy Transome as a husband or the impoverished but honest Felix Holt. Okay, actually, I feel a little bit calmed down just by reading the synopsis. And I kind of thought of making a summer project of reading it. Okay, and it says it's close to 600 pages. I was panicking that it was closer to 900, so that is nice to know. It's not quite as long as I thought. But I think as challenging as it will be, George Eliot is worth it to me. I rhymed, and I wasn't intending to. This has not been the year, though, to read Felix Holt. I'm really glad I fit in Romola at the beginning of the year. Once March hit, I don't think Felix Holt was going to happen. I feel safe reading Daniel Deronda this next month because I know it. It will not be a new book. But Felix Holt will be waiting for me. I don't know when I'll be reading it, but it will be waiting for me, and I can't wait to take in a whole new story by George Eliot. And yes, so please let me know, are you a fellow George Eliot fan? Do you enjoy her writing? Did you like Silas Marner more than I did? What is your favorite of her novels? Chat with me in the comments, and I hope you're having a great Victober, and I will be back for another video soon. Bye.